This is Gene DeLisio with a featured sports interview from WDLB and WOSQ. The Marshfield Tiger football program achieved its greatest success under coach Len Luedtke, who coached the Tigers between 1995 and 2009, compiling a record of 136-44, winning 3 conference championships, WIAA state championships in 1997, 2001, and 2002, and advancing to the state championship game in 1999 and 2003. Coach Luedtke is a native of the New London area and also served as head coach at Shawano in the late 1970s. He was inducted into the Marshfield Tiger Athletic Hall of Fame in 2014.
Well, it really means a great deal, especially for the whole coaching staff during those 15 years. We were blessed with a group of coaches that dedicated themselves to helping kids, and then obviously we had some very, very talented athletes in that run, and so I'm just grateful for the opportunity that was given to me, and this induction tonight is is a tribute to all the hard work that many people did to help the Marshfield football program.
Coach, you and I have talked enough about your coaching career and your background, and I know that even going back to your high school days at New London, there was a solid base built for you there. Tell us about those days and how that helped strengthen you and prepared you for your coaching career.
Well, it really did, Gene. You go back and you think about some of the people that were a big part of my life at that time. Ken Beagle, who is now in the Coaches Hall of Fame and a longtime coach at Wisconsin Rapids, was my head coach at New London and when I was a sophomore. And then Jack Wolt followed him up my junior and senior year, and he was an all-conference quarterback at UW-Stevens Point. And so I had a great start there. I even had a connection back in that time. Dick Bennett was coaching at New London at that time, and he even helped out our football program and when I was a senior, and so I had some great mentors through that whole period. I was involved with football, wrestling, and track, and just had a great, solid high school experience as well.
When you talk about your philosophy as a coach, a lot of it is based not so much on the X's and O's, but as you mentioned during your talk tonight, about the family priorities, things like that, and the parenting aspect of coaching. How did you first begin to develop that philosophy of coaching? Was it started in New London, Dakamilcon, a bit later? Where did that come from?
Well, basically, I think that's where it was really instilled. I was born into a Christian family, and my mom and dad were very supportive, and I had 8 brothers and sisters, so I knew family young. We worked as a family, and we worked on a family dairy farm, and so family was very important to us. And then the coaches that I did have at New London were of that same caliber. Coach Beagle, Coach Wolt, Coach Bennett, Coach Wernsberger was my wrestling coach, just all family-oriented, solid citizens in the community, and I think that really started it when I got really into the coaching career, and I got to listen to a couple of really outstanding coaches. The faith and family really got wound together more than it did, even in high school. And so I think that's where, as I matured as a coach, I felt that the successful programs were the programs that were, established in that background of solid faith, solid family.
Tell us about your days at UW Eau Claire, where you also have very good athletic success.
Really did have a great run at UW Eau Claire. Coach Walker, also in the Hall of Fame, the Coaches Hall of Fame. was a true mentor. I can remember the first day he came out and recruited us, or me. I was on the family farm, and one of my brother's dogs almost bit him, and he was deathly afraid of coming back to the farm. But he's a great inspiration as well. And I had a defensive line coach, Ade Olson, who has a long history in the Eau Claire athletic department. He was my defensive line coach and a great mentor as well. So, that whole background just continued to carry into, what I was going to try to do as I started out in Shawano.
How much did playing college football affect you and your coaching philosophy?
Well, I think the biggest thing that it did is it reinforced defensively, what I've tried to coach over the years was a carryover from high school and college. Coach Beagle and Coach Wolt, we played a 50 front, and Coach Walker at Eau Claire, we played a 50 front. So most of that technology or that technique and alignment assignment was very similar. Offensively, we were more of a running game back in those days, through the ball limited, and so that we evolved basically because we had a great offensive coordinator in Coach Gadel, and we exploited the passing game. We tried to incorporate that to give us a more balanced attack, and obviously it proved to be very successful.
Tell us about going to Shawano and becoming a coach in that system.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was an eye-opener, Gene. In 1975, Tom Grosskloss, who ended up being the offensive line coach at DC Everest, and myself were hired the same year to go to Shawano. We both played together at Eau Claire, good friends, and we're going to go to Shawano and we're going to knock the doors off. Well, we were 0-9 and we weren't even close in any of the games. I don't remember the score it was with Marshfield beat us, but those were the days when Anigo and some of those powerhouses, and we struggled at Shawano. As an assistant coach for 3 years, we only won like 3 or 4 games. And then in 1978, they gave me the head job. I was 25 years old. I really was very inexperienced as far as running a football program. And I took the program over, and we only won 9 games in those next 3 years. And that's where I made a change in my career. I thought, well, I don't know, the coaching might not be what I'm cut out to do. And so in 1981, we did. I left education and I went into business.
When you look back on your career, and I know there's various philosophies on this. Now, Shawano's not a large school, medium-sized school, maybe slightly larger, but some coaches have told me, in fact, I had a long talk one night with George Roman about this. Is it better to start at a big school as an assistant or start at a small school as a head coach and work your way up? Going back to your philosophy, how would you view that situation?
Well, I guess I was really honored to be named as a head coach at the age of 25 in one of the best conferences in the state. Wisconsin Valley Conference in football that was pretty big stuff, and so I felt like I was ready, but in reality, it was one of those situations where I didn't delegate very well. I only had 4 assistant coaches, and and I took the responsibility for the offense, the defense, and probably took too much responsibility and didn't delegate very well at all. And that was in a time when we didn't platoon, so you had 13, 14 players that were your key players, and those guys got all the reps. We were way too physical on Thursday nights. I think a lot of times we left some of our best plays on the practice field Thursday night. So in looking back at what we've evolved to, the delegation of responsibilities and building a staff that can do the things that you can't do and make a connection with kids, and I think that was kind of the big secret that I learned later on.
In fact, when you look back on those years, as difficult as they may have been from a success standpoint, do you look back on those years and say, boy, if it hadn't been for that, I would not have had the success I had in Marshfield because I learned so much coaching in Shawano in a very difficult situation.
I think you're absolutely right, Gene. I think the philosophy at that time, and I sat with Gordy Schofield from Antigo, and I talked to him about that very same thing. And he was the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and he couldn't give that up. But he's from that era where that's the way they did things. And I think for me, having that experience early, the frustration of not being able to handle the whole game. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in a game that if you're trying to do it all, you just can't do it all. And so, yeah, I think that was a big factor in developing the staff that we did, and then giving those guys the responsibility. And pretty much, I let Denny Gadel run the offense until I didn't like what he was doing, and I would tell him I didn't like what he was doing. And and when my son got up there, he took over the defense, and Jerry Littman was our special teams coach, and we had people designated, and they took pride, and they were very responsible in putting together a good team that was on the field.
As you mentioned, you left coaching and education for a period of years. Tell us about the decision to get back into it.
Well, the decision really was prompted by I was selling insurance in Waiwega. I was an American Family Insurance agent, and one of my clients was on the school board, and he came into my office one day and asked me if I wanted to be the athletic director. He says, we know you got a good athletic background, and we can't find anybody to fill that role. And in 1986, then I did. I took that position as the athletic director there. Kind of got the gears rolling again. I got involved with the Booster Club in Waiwega. I got involved with officiating and helping getting the program going again. And then in 1989, I was at a place where, if I'm going to make a change, this is a good time. My kids were getting to 7th and 8th grade. If we're going to do something different, now is a good time. And so I started applying for jobs. I had a couple of interviews, and like I said before, I was just grateful to Denny Myers for giving me a chance to come back in.
And what did that mean to you to have Denny roll the dice like that and hire you as a teacher here in the Marshfield School District?
Well, I've talked with Denny several times after that about it, and I think he says he saw the genuineness in me, or I'm not sure what really sold him. I know it was late in the year, and they needed a math teacher, and they needed somebody to coach football, and I think that had something to do with it as well. He had a background in football, and he knew some of the coaches at Eau Claire. I had played with Bob King at Eau Claire, and so Bob King and Steve Lou both were Blue Golds, and so maybe that had something to it. I don't know how they finally decided to give me a job in 1989, but it worked out really well for me, and I'm sure glad they did.
And you came to Marshfield and served on the football staff, and things were kind of tough those first few years. Tell us the status of the program when you first got here.
Well, the biggest thing was we didn't have very many athletes out for football. I mean, that was, I can remember, the first day I was working with the sophomore team with Coach Littman, and we had 13 sophomores that showed up, and that was all that we had to practice with. And at that time, the sophomores practiced by themselves. We didn't get to practice with the varsity, and so now we're out there trying to run offensive plays and defensive plays, and we don't have enough people. So Coach Littman or I are involved with being a player on the field, and my son was holding bags. He was a 6th grader, and just to survive. And we had an incredible season that year. I think we were 5-3 with those 13 kids. It was awesome, to make sure we had 11 on the field. If we had 2 beside us, we were good enough. And it was a fun, exciting year. And I think that kind of really got the ball rolling for me again.
And some of the names you mentioned there that you worked with, even that early, were people who were a very important part of your staff later on when you became the head coach. Tell us about building those early relationships with your fellow staff members.
Yeah, we did have a great relationship. Jerry and I coached together on the sophomore team that first year, and then actually I helped Jerry coach baseball that first year when I was in Marshfield too. A lot of people don't know that, but I was an assistant baseball coach to Jerry. And so we developed a real close bond. The next year, then Tom moved me up to as a varsity assistant, and then Jim McDonald got hired, and Jim and Jerry Littman were part of that sophomore program. And about in that time, 91 or 92, Ron Staromsky was hired at the junior high, and Lenny was playing for him down there. And and so as time went on, Bruce King was pretty instrumental in trying to hire football coaches. He helped get Coach Gadel hired here, and then we hired Coach Klein. We had Coach Weigel involved. Coach Scheuer came into the program, and so we took the opportunity when we had a chance to hire a good teacher coach, and those guys fit right into what we were doing. Paul Fagan had been here before a long time as a 7th grade coach, but we brought him right away up to help us at the sophomore level, just because, again, he was a great teacher, he was a great role model, and helped draw athletes into our program.
Tell us about the circumstances that made you the head coach here.
Well, I think the biggest thing that was it was kind of a tough year. We're coming off a year we were 1-9, I believe, in '94, and my son was a junior on that team and linebacker and played tight end that year on offense, and is one of those situations where, do you go for the job? Do you want to take the job? And Lenny came right out and asked me, he says, Dad, don't you think we're any good? Don't you want to take this thing? And he challenged me, I guess was probably the right way to say it. And he was one of the leaders of that group and of that class. And so he just, I think that was one of the big decisions. And then the rest of the staff kind of got together as well. Coach Gadel, Coach Mack, Coach Weigel, all kind of got into the idea that, we want Len to be the head coach. And I think they helped promote that through, Pete Kapleen was the AD and Denny Myers was the principal. And I think through that whole process convinced them that, to give me a chance at it at least.
And having that staff support, I'm sure, was very, very strong. Tell us about some of the things that you tried to instill. First of all, getting as many people involved as possible, and also really opening up the offense, which really was an attractive way to play football for these kids. Yeah,
that was critical. The first thing that I recall that made a big difference, we went to, Paul Fagan was a 7th grade coach, and he was a math teacher, so I knew him very well. And so we got the names of every kid that had played 7th, 8th, and 9th grade football, and sent a letter home to mom and dad, sent a letter home to the player, and said, this is the start of a new program. We want a platoon. We want to get as many kids playing as we can get playing. And I remember the first year we had 24 seniors, and that was Lenny's senior class, but we had 95 kids out for football. That was the biggest number we had by like 30 people. And so, we platooned. Lenny was the only guy that went both ways. At that time, he was a fullback and a linebacker, but we played, 20 different kids, and we played kids on special teams. Moms and dads got to see their sons play on Friday night under the lights, and even if it was only a special team play or whatever. And then, we were fortunate. We won 7 games that year, and we won 5 of them in the fourth quarter. And we came from behind 5 times to win, and they believed. And the next year we had over 100 kids, and the next year we had 120 kids. And so, I think that was the big secret is we recruited. We talked to parents about your son is going to get a chance to play. We're going to treat him like he deserves to be treated, and they bought into it.
Many coaches I've talked to over the years have told me that all of their players are special to them, but I've had a number of coaches say the real special guys are the first-year seniors. When you take over a program, the seniors who stick with the program and they make that commitment despite the transition, they really are special because they are a bridge between the old program and we were trying to build. Tell us about those seniors, what that means to you to have so many guys stick it out with you and believe in you that first year.
Well, I think that was a real secret to to our success. We were able to play seniors, and we went into the seasons telling the kids, we're going to play seniors, unless there's clearly somebody that's better than you. I mean, I believe in seniors. You put the time in with us. If you're going to do the things that we ask you to do in the weight room and prepare yourself, then you're going to get a chance to play on Friday night. And if there's somebody that's younger that's better than you, then we're going to decide that. But they believed in us, and I had some great examples of that. One of the Nordine brothers, Doug Nordine, played as a junior on every JV game. Never got to see much action as a starter his junior year. The next year came in and became an all-conference defensive end. Just because he stayed with it, he worked with the program, and you couldn't keep him off the field as a senior. And those are the neat things that have happened. You take an athlete that is very, very talented. Well, yeah, those guys are going to make the plays and they're going to be out there. But when you can work with an average player, get him to buy into what you're doing, get him a little bigger, a little stronger, a little confidence, and then he blooms into an all-conference player. That's really exciting.
You touched on Denny Myers earlier. How about some thoughts about Bruce King and the support you had from the administration?
Well, I think that was really initial. When I was going through the interview process, Bruce King was involved. Pete Kapleen and Denny Myers were the three that interviewed, and we talked about expanding the coaching staff. When I was an assistant coach, there was a head coach and 4 assistants. That's all we had. And the first year when I got the job, I had asked for 2 assistant coaches. So I started in '95 with 6 assistants, and we still platooned at that time. I kind of coached the offensive line and the linebackers, and Jerry did the secondary, and Denny did the quarterbacks and receivers. Lee Weigel was helping us at that time with the running backs, and we made it work with 7 coaches. Best story about that is we did that for 2 years, and then in '97, I talked Bruce and Denny into giving me another assistant coach because I didn't want to coach both sides of the ball, so we brought Ron Storonsky up to coach the offensive line. And his best line is, geez, Len, if you'd have brought me up a couple years earlier, you'd have won a state title in '95. And he was a great fit into our program, so then we were up to 8 assistants. We had 4 on offense and defense. And then since then, we've been able to add the right number. I think that we needed to have to be comfortable to do what we wanted to do was 10. And the last 2 we fundraised to help give them a little compensation, but the administration did open up and give us 3 additional assistants.
You talked about the camaraderie you had with the assistants, going to trips and camps and going to Nebraska and Tennessee and all over the place to go to these football camps and being with these guys for a long week or a weekend. What did that mean to your program to build that camaraderie with those guys?
Well, some of the best clinics we had were, driving. We spent 12 hours in a car going to Lincoln in the spring of '97 to watch them at spring ball. And it was Coach Gadel, Coach Mack, Coach Klein, and I. Well, you're stuck in a car. What are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about football, and we did develop a great relationship. We went to Michigan with 5 or 6 of our staff. We went to Purdue. We always went to the Wisconsin camp and clinic, and we went to Minnesota. So we traveled as a group, and you just had that. You developed that relationship, that trust, the confidence. Like I said tonight here at the banquet, Coach Gale and I, we always sat in the back seat of the bus on every road trip. So we sat together for 15 years every game we went to. Sometimes we were sleeping, sometimes we were talking, but we developed that confidence in each other.
And you brought in Denny Gadel into the football program, your program, as a young guy. He said 23, 24 years old and didn't have a lot of experience, especially as a coach, and was kind of raw. But what did you see in him to make him part of your staff?
Well, the biggest thing is his energy. Anybody that knows Denny Gadel knows he's high-strung, he's wired, he's going all the time, and his confidence in teaching kids and confidence in developing really what we needed to develop, and that was a solid passing game. Sold me on it, right from the get-go, and was one of the best things we did. We won a lot of ball games on, as you know, on some late heroics throwing the football down the field, and you can't do that consistently if you're pounding 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So it was a huge impact on us, and he's confident. He's confident. He's excitable, and he gives that that confidence to the players. And the relationship that he developed with his quarterbacks is incredible. They had confidence in him, and he had that. It was a mutual thing. When they needed their butts chewed out, he wasn't afraid to do it, and they respected him, and they just developed a great relationship.
When you look back on 1997, what does that mean to you?
1987? 1997. Well, 1997 was, as you know, we went through the conference and we got beat by Everest and we got beat by Rapids, so we were the third-place team in the league, and that was the first year that they had expanded the playoffs. Well, I guess they expanded it in 96, so we made the playoffs in 96, and we won a couple of games. We won a couple of games in 96, so we had our feet wet on the playoff deal. And then in 97, we had a good nucleus of senior players. Only one of that group played in college. Jason Thelma played at Eau Claire. The rest of them were just good high school ball players, and they believed in each other, and we got going. And once you get in the playoffs, well, all right, now it's a brand new season. We had to beat DC Everest. That was an incredible game. Then we had to go down to Rapids and beat Rapids, and that was another nail biter till the end. Well, now we beat two of the best teams in the state. Okay, well, now we got a chance. So then we get to play Sun Prairie in Baraboo, and we just had another beautiful game there. End up going against the top-ranked team, Oak Creek, and nobody thought we had a chance in beating them. And we put together a good game plan and played great defense, and we scored 3 times in the first half and got a win out of it. So. Unbelievable experience. I can't, we knew we had a good football team, but we didn't know that we were capable of doing what we did.
You talked also about the community support. What did that mean to you over the years?
Oh, it was awesome. Our parents jumped behind us. I've often said that if you can keep moms involved in football, they're going to be real supporters for you in that program, and they did. They took over we did some potlucks, before our games. We had a big steak feed that Kurt Andrews' dad provided the steer for us before we went to Madison. Huge welcome back when we came back to town. We had an escort out of town. The community caught on fire when we started to win some of those big ball games, and I can remember coming back in '97, and it's the night before deer hunt, and I love deer hunting, and so we have a celebration at the Edgetown. People have been in this town a long time know where Edgetown used to be. And I took the trophy with me deer hunting. I went right along in the truck with me, and Lenny and I drove over by Marshfield area where I live now, and took the trophy with us. I didn't hunt much that day. Pretty much I slept under the tree, but we had the trophy with us.
Former Marshfield Tiger football coach and Athletic Director Len Luedtke inducted into the Marshfield Tiger Athletic Hall of Fame in the fall of 2014. This is Gene DeLisio reporting for WDLB and WOSQ.